Okay, this is drill number 2. Number 1, we have negative 3 to the negative 2 power. All right, the first thing we need to remember is that when you have a negative number and you're raising it to a power, the negative is only affected by the power. It only gets to go along with the power if it's in parentheses. So for example, if you have negative 2 squared, all right, that means you take everything inside the parentheses and you multiply it by itself. So that means negative 2 times negative 2, which is positive 4. But if I just have negative 2 squared with no parentheses, then that means the negative sign is not affected by the square, only the 2 is. In other words, this is negative 2 squared. So 2 squared is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. The negative sign doesn't go along with the exponent. So it's negative 2 times 2. So 2 times 2. So it's just negative 4. So you have to have parentheses if you want to multiply the number and its sign by itself, or square it or cube it or whatever. You have to have the negative sign inside the parentheses and the exponent outside the parentheses. So here in this problem number 1, there are no parentheses at all. So that negative sign just sits in front. It doesn't get involved with that exponent. So just go ahead and put the negative sign in front. Now you've got 3 to the negative 2. When you have a negative exponent, that means you take the reciprocal of the base and change the sign on the exponent. The reciprocal of 3 is 1/3. So this is 1/3, and it's to the positive 2. You make the 3 to the positive 2. All right? So the answer is negative 1/9. 3 times 3 is 9. All right, number 2, you don't have any parentheses, so that negative sign, again, is just going to sit in front. It doesn't get involved with the exponent. And then you've got 1/2 to the negative 3. So if you have a negative exponent in the denominator, you can flip the base up to the numerator and change the sign on the exponent. So I can take that 2 to the negative 3 and flip it up to the top. So it becomes just 2 to the positive 3. I mean, if you want to remember that there is a denominator, you can just put 2 over 1. But it doesn't, you don't need that over 1 because now it's just a whole number. But you can put that if you want, if it makes you feel better, that it's still a fraction. You've just taken that thing with the negative exponent and moved it up to the numerator and changed the sign on the exponent. All right, 2 times 2 times 2, which is 2 cubed, is 8. So that's negative 8 for your answer there. All right, number 3. You've got negative 3, so that's just sitting there, negative 3, minus, now you have to do this exponent. Remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I don't know how you remember it in high school. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But that means parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's the order of operations. You have to do exponents before you do any multiplication, division, etc. All right, so you've got negative 3 squared. The negative 3 is inside the parentheses. The square is outside the parentheses. That means you're multiplying negative 3 by negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So this is 9. All right, the negative that's in front of the 9 is right here, not this one. This one went away when I multiplied negative 3 times negative 3 and got positive 9. But there's another negative sign right there, and that's still sitting there. All right, then you've got plus, and you have to multiply negative 3 times negative 6. That's what these parentheses mean. It means multiply. Negative 3 times negative 6 is positive 18. All right, so now all you have to do is add and subtract from left to right. So negative 3 minus 9 is negative 12, plus 18 is 6. All right, number 4. First thing you have is negative 3 to the 0 power. Do the exponent. 3 to the 0 is 1. The negative sign is not affected by that exponent at all, so it just sits there. So negative 1 is in front. Now put your bracket. Negative 3 squared. There's no parentheses here, so the negative just sits there. 3 squared is 9. Then minus 2 times, now you have to do parentheses before you start doing anything else. You could do the distributive property here, but there's no reason to do that because negative 2 minus 3 can be done first and get negative 5. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Then close the bracket, and then you've got here, in this bracket, you've got negative 2 to the 0 power. 2 to the 0 is 1, so that's negative 1. The negative just sits there. It's not affected by the exponent. Okay, so you've got a negative 1 in front here, and you've got a negative 1 in back that are really going to cancel each other out when you multiply these three things together, because you're multiplying this times this times this, because that's what these brackets and parentheses mean. They mean multiplication. All right, so do all that stuff in the bracket first. You've got to do the multiplication right here first. Multiply comes before subtraction in your order of operations. So the first thing you have to do is multiply negative 2 times negative 5 in the bracket. So out front you've got negative 1. Here you've got negative 9 minus, or, well, you could, if you're going to multiply negative 2 times negative 5, you can say plus 10. So it'll be plus 10. And then on the outside you've got another negative 1 over here, like I said. So now you've got negative 1 in front. Inside the bracket you now just have 1. Negative 9 plus 10 is 1. And then you multiply that by negative 1. And you've got 1 times 1 is 1. All right, now you've got negative 3, got a bracket. All right, you've got to do the stuff in the parentheses first. And in the parentheses, you've got an exponent, so you have to do that first. All right, so negative 2 to the 0 power. The negative sign is not affected by the exponent, just sits there. And 2 to the 0 is 1, plus 5, minus, in this parentheses, you've got negative 3 plus 7, which is positive 4. And then you're subtracting the absolute value of negative 2. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2. All right. And now you've got your negative 3 outside here. You've got to do all the stuff inside the brackets. First, we'll do this first parentheses. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4. And then minus 4 minus 2. So negative 3 times in the bracket. 4 minus 4 is 0. Minus 2 is negative 2. Negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6.